Welcome to Disabilities Journal. I'm your host, John DiBiase, former executive director of an agency that supports people with disabilities. This is the third show in a series, and today with me are Eileen Egan, executive director of Community Mainstreaming Advocates, and via Zoom we have Assembly Member Melissa Miller. Ms. Miller represents the 20th Assembly District that includes Long Beach. She's also the parent of a son who has a developmental disability, and she serves on the Assembly Committee on Developmental Disabilities. Thank you both for joining me today. When I was the executive director of an agency, I felt that advocacy was one of the primary things that I did in my role. I was always willing to go up to Albany and ask for something, whether it was for money or for services or improvement in services. And I always felt that when I went to my senator or a member of the assembly and said, save our services, I always felt like like I was saying, save my job. And I knew that when a parent who was always with me, I always brought a parent with me or a self-advocate, and I said, and they said, save my services, it resonated quite differently. Eileen. Yes. Let's segue into Eileen. You're preparing now to go up to Albany for legislative days that are coming up, usually around Valentine's Day. I've gotten into a lot of trouble being up in Albany for Valentine's Day. You have talking points. Mm-hmm. Besides those talking points, what in your heart do you want to leave with members?
Well, I think I want all of the people in the legislature to understand how dependent we are on our workforce and how important it is for us to raise them up to a level. We have to raise their compensation so that they can have a living wage. We're having a terrible time recruiting people now, retaining people. Even though people want to work in this field, we don't have enough money to sustain that. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Miller, as a member of the Assembly Committee on Developmental Disabilities, you juggle a couple of different roles. You're not only a member of the legislature, you're also the parent of a gentleman who has a disability. When you hear folks come up and they're going to come to you and they're going to say, you know, we need this, we need that, we need more money. What if you were just advocating and not a member of the assembly? What would you want to leave your member with?
Well, I'm a big believer in be direct in your ask. I think a lot of times as a parent especially, we're emotional. We're personally invested in what we're asking for because we're living it. So, it's when you get emotional, it can be very easy to kind of, just go on and on and on, and you're talking and you lose somebody's interest that way. So be direct and have a very clear ask and be focused with that. But I also believe that when I brought my child with me, I did lots of advocacy, and I brought him with me. And yeah, you know what? It was a schlep up to Albany and, a long day going from member to member through the Senate, through the Assembly. But I found that when I had my son with me and they could interact with him and they could see firsthand how what we were asking for was affecting our lives, that made a difference. That resonated with them. So a lot of families, I think, are afraid to do that. They're afraid to either expose themselves, their personal lives. They're afraid of being punished by a provider if they speak out against or say we need more than this. But I think that really the best advocacy is done by those who are willing to share of themselves. It really, I said before, I've had so many different and between senators, assembly members. Even I met with the last term's OPWDD commissioner or the Department of Health commissioner. both of them had said to me at different times, I can't stop thinking about your son. I can't stop thinking about what you said to me, that you have to do this. One of them came into my office, just walked past and came into my office in Albany and said, I can't believe you have to bring him up here because we're not able to get him what he needs at home. Yeah. So, that visual, I think, and that personal story is a great advocacy tool.
We've talked a little bit before we came on the air about the partnership between families, agencies, and government.
Yeah.
A lot of our agencies, I know the one that I worked for, was started by parents who needed a play group for their kids because there were no services at all in the late 50s, early 60s. That sort of morphed into parents who expect stuff because they weren't part of that grassroots movement. Eileen, would you like to talk a little bit more about it? It's got to be a nonpartisan and partnership.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that parents today sometimes think that agencies are very set in old ways, and maybe some are. And we certainly have traditional programs that we've been running now for about 40 years. But we're also willing to innovate and develop new programs. That's another thing that I think we need to advocate for. Maybe a little bit less regulation so we can be more innovative. I think that would be helpful. We could get more specific about those regulations, but I think families and agencies are much more powerful when they work together. As John said, we need to show agencies aren't advocating to just sustain themselves. We're here. I'm here because the woman who founded my organization 45 years ago has passed away, and I'm taking care of her 67-year-old son. Yeah. He's my responsibility now. So, we want to be there for families, and I hope that they understand that and that we can work together.
I know that there's a lot of great folks up in Albany who serve on committees and who are very take ownership of the field and try their very best to give us what we need. Assemblyman Abenati, I've had a few meetings with him over the course of the years, with Winnie generally at the Crown Plaza after hours. But there's other folks who are up there who I know want the field to be the best it can. How do we attack that?
I think for the most part, I will say, disability knows no party. We could care less who believes in what. It has nothing to do with our daily lives and what we're trying to do. And I'm very grateful that really, for the most part, in the Assembly, we're all on the same page. It's such a bipartisan effort that, we very closely work together to try and craft better legislation, and, to try and listen to what the stakeholders are saying, what the people with the boots on the ground are saying they need, because they're the ones that tell us, and that's how we can do our best work. I will say it has been very, very frustrating and upsetting over the last decade, watching what had gone on from a state that was really the gold standard in taking care of individuals with disabilities and making sure they had services and were respected, and the workers were paid what they deserved, and there were COLAs, and to go from that to an administration that dropped them to the bottom of the totem pole and underfunded every year, in addition to cutting services and funding every year. It was a losing battle, and little by little things were falling apart. So I'm hoping that now with a new administration, there seems to be an ear for it, which is, look, saying something and showing it in a budget are two very different things, and we're not there. We haven't really seen in the budget what we want to see, but this is a start. We have an ear. We have a commitment to, at least disperse some of the federal funding to incentivize the workforce and get people into the field. And, it's way more of a commitment than we've gotten over the past 10 years. So I'm hoping that between that, and if we can continue what you said before about the agencies partnering with the families, that could not be more true. You're only as good as the people you're serving, and we're only as good as the people who are providing the service. We need to be working together, not against each other.
Right.
Yes, there are parents that are in any area, no matter where you work, no matter what you do, there are going to be the people that just complain, the people that just expect, everything handed to them. But for the most part, most of these families are willing to, what can we do? How can we make this better? How can we help? And with the agencies doing that, and all of us being, united and presenting this united front to a legislature that really, truly wants to make this better. We really, I can say that with confidence about our legislature. Even in the Senate, we have such great people that really want to make this a commitment. So I'm hoping that can get done. But again, I will go back to what I started with, clear ask. Can't leave it up to them to interpret what you're asking for. You need to state clearly what you think you need and put that in, writing and make sure it's clear.
That's really great, because a lot of folks who are watching, who will be watching us, are advocates, are parents, are people who work for agencies who may be afraid to come up and ask you for stuff, okay? I know that that's not the case. I know that I've never been turned out of anybody's office because I was asking for something. But to ask clearly and say, we need... what do we need? Go ahead.
Okay.
You have to ask still.
What we need is a sustained effort. You talk about the last 10 years. I looked back, and 10 years ago, the minimum wage was $7.25 an hour. We paid 50% more than that. We paid $11 an hour.
It was a respected field.
I'm sorry?
It was a respected field. People
right.
were respected when they did that for a living.
Right. We had a lot of people who were college students who came to get to choose this as a field and worked in our direct support professional positions to get experience. And right now, it's not looked to as a field that you want to make your life, that you can have a life with. So we need to get there. And I feel when we go, I also agree with you that there is a resurgence of hope that we haven't had in
10 years.
In a decade because of the new administration, Governor Hochul, and this acting commissioner, Carrie Nyfield, has really brought us hope that people are listening. People want to make the system better. But we can't just go each year and ask for a little something in the budget. It has to be a sustained effort.
Well, and that has been the argument. We have to make clear, because like I said, it's very easy to feel a little bit of hope and say, oh, yay, we have their ear and we get momentum. And then it drops off because there's no commitment in the budget. Mm-hmm. This can't be a yearly commitment. This can't be, okay, we'll give you this much this year. This needs to be, you know what? We need to make sure that DSP starting wage is up by 20%. Yeah. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that there's money in this budget for the next 5 years. This Absolutely. Will take us through that so that it's sustained. Doing everything a Band-Aid every single year. Listen, we're have all been deprived of that for so long that we're just like, yeah, give it to us. But we need the sustainability. We need that investment in this workforce. That's what we need.
Because they used the same Band-Aid for 10 years and it sort of wilted.
Well, it reminds me of
money that year.
Yeah.
It reminds me of when Governor Pataki put in New York State Cares, and we had a 5-year commitment.
We had a 5-year plan
for everybody to have, or as many residential opportunities could be developed.
Eileen
Don't even get me started on that issue.
Yeah. Eileen started to say that we used to pay 50% more than the minimum wage. Now the minimum wage is $15 an hour, and we're struggling to pay that $15 an hour.
Yeah.
And so, but it's not a minimum wage field. It's a field where every direct support professional is responsible for lives, real lives, for people, not just paper.
And this is why I think it's so important for the individuals who live with this to be visible with this. I know intimately, because I have to do this for my son, who is an adult. I have to change his diaper. I have to do his feedings, his G-tube. I have to do his oral hygiene. The job that these people are doing is God's work. And we're expecting them to do it for less than minimum wage. We're not saying, here, you take this $18, $19 to start and we'll raise you from there. We're not doing that. It's unforgivable. It's so important for the legislators, the governor. Let's see, one of the earmarks of our former governor was he would never, ever meet with a single constituent with a disability.
I don't want to see wheelchairs on the mall. I remember him saying that.
He didn't want any of that visible, wouldn't meet with anybody. You can't get a good understanding or a good, feel for what somebody's needs are unless you've sat down and talked to them, unless you see for yourself. I had the Senate Majority Leader. I met with him, and afterwards he said to me, I never would have had even thought of it unless I sat with you and talked to you and watched your son and it gave him, the reality check that they need. There's that Pocahontas saying, until you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you never knew the things you never knew, right?
Yep.
If you don't know this life, if you don't know what the needs are, if you can hear it and it sounds, that's compelling, that's, nice. You have no idea what the needs are until you actually sit down and meet people that have those needs. So hopefully she will be willing to do that as well.
We hope so. I know when I came to the field late in my life. I was 50 years old when I came to the field, and I came as an associate executive director. And I fell in love with the whole concept of what the field was about almost immediately. In fact, it was immediately. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come back from lunch the first day. I think that we need to attract people into the DSP titles who have that feeling like, I'm really doing something good.
I'm making a difference.
Yeah, I'm making a difference in somebody's life, not just out there. I'm making a difference in somebody's life. And I think that we need to make sure that they can support themselves to attract them to that job. Because I can work at McDonald's and have no responsibility except for making the right change and get the same $15 an hour.
Well, and that's what we've been asking for. These incentives for that workforce. We asked for, the bonuses, the longevity bonus. Somebody's committed and staying.
Right.
Reward them for that. We appreciate that. Give them a sign-on bonus. They stayed through the pandemic. They were working double shifts. Give them that hero bonus and incentivize the field. How about give them a trajectory? Maybe there's some way to figure out if we can get them where they can earn benefits, maybe a retirement package, something where they feel that they're in a career path, not just a job that doesn't ever get a raise and go anywhere. So, the whole field needs to be respected more.
Forgive their student loans.
Maybe, yeah. Or yeah, because if you teach in a
high need area.
High need area. Thank you so much. You get deducted from your student loan. My daughter-in-law is a surgeon, and she teaches and she operates in Montefiore, and because she's in an inner city hospital, part of her student loan is forgiven after so many years. So maybe something like that. Go ahead.
Do you want to talk about housing? You said, don't get me started on residential and housing.
I mean, you know that residential housing is such a deep situation.
So when I first got elected, I met with OPWDD at that time, and I said, I don't know that you're not prepared for the growth of your transitioning into adult population. You have all of these individuals, for whatever it's worth, medical advances, education about behavioral challenges. People are living longer than they used to with these disabilities, and more people are staying home longer. The fact that they've closed so many residential facilities or programs in their push to do away with institutions has left, a vacancy crisis across the state, to the point where we have so many individuals in out-of-state placements because there are no in-state residential placements available for them. So you have that. You have, I don't know how many people on a waiting list. You have children who are aging out of their group home, but they have no adult placement facility to go to. So they're staying there, and other children who need placement can't get in because there are so there's so many different areas where this has become a wildly, exaggerated problem, or not exaggerated, a wildly, crazy problem that I said to them years ago, you are on the cusp of a crisis. Their answer was, well, we're trying to get, some more proposals out there. We have one here, we have one for 3 beds there, or one. They're not looking at the big picture.
A few years ago, I gave the graduation speech at the JFK Junior High School in Queens. And these were kids, these were parents, and the parents were like deers in the headlight. Like, okay, my kid just graduated. What does a parent do? And I think the parents need to address this, and it needs to be the parents, I'm going to say on the attack, that's not the right word, but the parents who have to come and not be afraid to talk to you and your colleagues and ask and directly ask for what they need. I agree with that. Because if you start flowering stuff, you're going to leave, and it's going to be like, okay, what does they really want?
A lot of parents have. What they've started doing is several parents are getting together and pooling their self-direction funds, and either buying a house or giving, one parent gave up their house, sold their house to their son. And several other, similar, kind of profile adults live in the house, and they use their self-direction funds and their SSI to pay the rent or the mortgage, and to pay for services, pay for ComHab workers and, staffing for the homes. But the burden shouldn't be on the parents. What happens when the parents are gone? Right. What are they supposed to do?
And I look at the clock in front of us, and I'm going, okay, we have 28 minutes, and how are we going to fill this 28 minutes? And the next thing I look around, and there's 4 minutes left. What I'd like to do is ask each of you to give me a quick summary of advocacy and what you expect from advocacy, because we're out of time.
Okay. Okay, I think for advocacy to be successful, I've said it before, I'll say it again. First and foremost, you need a very clear ask. You want to make sure that the person you're sitting across from knows exactly what you're asking for. Don't assume that they'll interpret or they'll know what you need. Make sure you're clear. Make sure you have it in writing. And if possible, have your loved one with you. If you're an agency, bring some of the people that you work with, that you help, because those personal stories really leave an impression with a legislator or with a commissioner or, whoever you're meeting with that's in this position of being able to make policy change or funding, giving funding. Having that personal touch, that personal visual, that story that they can't stop thinking about, that is what drives change. So, try and have that with you. That's really what's worked best personally for me and what resonates most with me when somebody comes to meet with me.
Eileen?
Fantastic. Yeah, I guess I just want to, I totally agree with that. I think as a field, we have to all work together, and that means families, agencies, our self-advocates, our direct support professionals. We all have to come together because we're all looking for the same things. And we want to impress upon our government that we have some making up to do because of 10 years of not really helping us keep up with the cost of things. We need to have a sustainable effort in the next several years in order to catch up.
I agree.
Thank you, Assemblymember Melissa Miller. Thank you, Eileen Egan. And thank you for watching. I hope that you come away with some new appreciation for what parents and advocates at all levels face every day. We're in a budget season, and it's very important that you let the governor, members of the Assembly and Senate, know what you want and be clear what you want them to support for services with people with developmental disabilities. Until next time, I'm John DiBiase, and this has been Disabilities Journal. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Please contact Governor Hochul and Commissioner Neefield, as well as your representatives in the New York State Assembly and Senate. Ask them to please include significant funding for direct support professionals who support people with developmental disabilities.